what we call our dark parts. Usually that darkness or that trauma, that pain is there for a reason, right? So we usually often these parts formed when we were really young. We developed ways of trying to deal with, cope with life, cope with our hurt, cope with our pain. So it's like these little nuggets of thoughts and behaviors and behavior patterns get like they cohere into these parts, and we judge some of them as dark, some of them as light. But in fact, if you really are to dig, all of these parts formed out of the desire to help ourselves and keep ourselves safe. That's why they form. And so just to the extent that you can remember that this, it's not bad, it's maybe just misguided, not helpful, but its goal is to try to help us. And then, so in the internal family systems model, they have something called self with a capital S. I mean, that's what I would refer to when I talk about self-compassion, that when we are in a state of self-compassion, it's like our big self. We aren't lost in the parts of ourself or our partial self. When we come from a place of compassion, we're really embodying. You can call it your higher self, your wise self. There's a lot of different names for it. But to the extent that we can remember that these parts that are cause pain are there for a reason. They're trying to help us. To the extent that we can remember that they do not, we are more than that. That's part of us. We have lots of other parts, including our true self, you might say, which is our big self, our compassionate self. And then to try to call on that, to relate to these parts with this bigger perspective, with this compassion. And so it's not like you gotta like, you're going to be a mess. I'm going to be a mess. They're still going to fight. It's still, it's messy. It's, we are, maybe some people will get all their, what together, but most of us human beings are still going to be a mess. We're still going to make mistakes, and there's still going to be tension and internal conflict. But what we all have the ability to do, especially when we adopt the perspective of the big self, of our compassionate self, then once we are in that place, we aren't so dominated by what's happening.